Good evening. My name is Rodney Brown. I live in Carrollton, Georgia. This is my dad, Larry G. Brown. He was 83 years old. And it is 10:30 on the East Coast. And I'm having to make this video because I don't do Facebook and I don't do Instagram. So I'm making a video so it can be put on there so I can share this with the United States of America and hopefully the world. Because I know we're better than this. I know we're better than this. We're all God's children. Love's always going to win and always will win. But my dad, Larry G. Brown, he was 83 years old, and he went to Tanner Medical Center on January the 9th, and on January the 21st, they released him because he had pneumonia, and they released him because his legs had gotten weak and needed some therapy for his legs to build his strength back. So they sent him out to Carrollton Manor, and Carrollton Manor, the first day there, that was a Monday. No, the 21st of January. Had no physical therapy when he got there because he got there after lunch. So the second day he was out there, a friend went by to check on him. I also went out there as well, but I didn't know the friend had gone out there. And when she was there, she said that Dad had pushed a little call button to go to the restroom. And after about 20 minutes, she went up there to the desk and I wanted to know why nobody's come to take him to the restroom. And the lady came down, checked the button, and come to find out the light was off outside the door. It didn't work. She said she put a work order in and get it fixed. Well, nobody still came and took my dad to the restaurant that day. And our lady friend had to take my dad. She felt very uncomfortable doing that, but thank you for doing that. She took my dad I had to go to the restroom. And anyway, Wednesday, the 22nd, his first day of physical therapy and only day of physical therapy. Now, remember, we went out there just for physical therapy to get the strength back in his legs. So that's one day of physical therapy. And on the 23rd, I went out there to check on him. They had him in a diaper, and the lady was inside there. And I asked her, I said, ma'am, take this diaper off of him. He's cognate. He can talk to y'all. And I looked at him, and I noticed he couldn't really talk as well like he normally does. It's like they had given him something to make his tongue thicker and tied or what, I don't know. But they gave him something because everybody out there that I noticed when I walked through the place, they looked like they were zombies. I mean, they just didn't look real. I mean, they were real people, but they can speak to you. And now that I've been processing this last 33 days, I'll look back on it and I'm sitting there thinking, wow, they were trying to speak to me. Because my dad was getting the same way, but they couldn't say nothing either. But my dad wanted to know where all his clothes were after trying to make sense of what he was trying to say. And I had to finally get his clothes from the people. They had left him in that gown already for 3 days and tried to get where his clothes were at. And they finally got them, but they still didn't put the clothes on him or help him get his clothes on him. So no physical therapy that day. The lady said she was going to call. She said she had no idea that he was there for physical therapy. And I'm like, that's what we're here for. So that Friday, my dad I get a text from work. They had to send my dad to the hospital because his blood sugar had gotten low and his heart rate had gotten so low that the devil's trying to keep me from talking to. but it's not going to work. That they take him to Tanner Medical Center. So I get down to Tanner Medical Center, and when I get down there, we sat down there till 7:30 that night. The ambulance finally came and got him. They got all his heart back his heart rate back up, blood sugar good, but he still had a little pleurisy on his lung, they said, from the x-ray, from the pneumonia. So I told Dad that night when we got him back out there, 7:30, 7:45, when I left, I said, hey, I'll see you in the morning. Next morning comes. It's Saturday morning, the 25th. And my dad, I could hear him when I was walking down the hall from his door. I could hear him. And he was gurgling. He was drowning in his own fluid. And somebody had come in and set his food tray in front of him and took the lid off. And I can tell you what was on that tray because when I got in the room, I saw the tray and I thought, really? Somebody didn't see this? So I moved the tray out of the way, the whole cart and everything that was holding his food on, and tried to lean him forward to get some of that out of his body. And a little bit came up, and I leaned him back, and he's still gurgling. And I saw a nurse out of my peripheral vision, a CA, and I hollered for her to get a nurse and get an ambulance. And another nurse comes in there. They're color-coded out at Carrollton Manor. This is at Carrollton Manor in Carrollton, Georgia. Get out there, and she comes in the room and looks at me. They wear red. The lead nurses wear red. The CAs wear green, and I don't remember what the blue were, but I noticed they was a color-coded pattern. And one of the head nurses came in and said, was he like this when they brought him back from last night? And I said, no, ma'am. I said, they wouldn't have left him at the hospital. Another nurse comes in wearing the red, and she says the same thing and checks him and makes sure. She said, oh, he has a fever. She said it's going up. She had a little thermometer that read the numbers as it went up. And she tested him for COVID, and he tested positive for COVID, but they're doing nothing about him sitting there drowning. So the ambulance finally comes and gets there. And I got the 911 on my phone. And the ambulance guys get there, and they pick my dad up and put him on the cart, the stretcher, and they're working on him, sticking his tube down his throat, trying to suck the stuff out of him, and said, you go to the hospital because when we get out to the ambulance, we're going to have to still do some more work on him. We'll be right on our way. Well, we get there to the hospital, 9:30. I get back there in the back, and when I walk in, I see my dad. He's on a CPAP, and let me show you this. This is the first day my dad at Carrollton Manor. That's an 83-year-old man that gets there his first day. And I walked in and found my dad. He'd only been there for 63 hours because you got to take the time from the hospital out and all that. And we went out there for physical therapy only. And my dad ends up on a ventilator from Carrollton Manor for neglect, not doing what they're supposed to do. And this right here is when I walk in and I see my dad for the first time. This is what I walked into on. Right here, where he was drowning. This is Larry Brown. This is what I walked into when he was drowning. That right there is 63 hours out at Carrollton Manor. From this picture right here to this picture right there. I know it's kind of hard to see. I'm doing the best I can. And this is when I walked into him that night. At the hospital after 10 hours. He's on a CPAP. I know it's hard to see. I'm trying to do the best I can. And Sarah, one of the nurses, lead nurses down there at Tanner Medical Center, thank God for her. Thank God for her. Because she went way beyond. And anyway, we ended up having to put my dad on a ventilator that night. Didn't have much of a choice. That was not his wishing wills. But my dad, they put IVs in him for 2 hours. I mean, it was 2 hours per bag, so it took 6 hours to put those in him. And me and my brother didn't have a choice because he had fought so long. All this right here was wore out. And Sarah, I told her what I found, how my dad got into the situation he's in now. And she said, no wonder he's wore out. He's tired. I said, yeah, for 83-year-olds at my home. I said, he's fought. And we didn't have a choice. But this is what my dad, that night, he's on a ventilator. That's a dead man laying on a ventilator, keeping him alive. Two days later, the doctor told us 48 to 60 hours for the antibiotics to work. I called my brother. Me and him made a decision to do 60 hours because that's what the doctor said, 48 to 60 hours to see if the antibiotics would go through his body to let it work. So he was on a time for 60 hours. And he was going to meet God. And during this process, Sunday morning, couldn't breathe on his own. Monday morning when I got there, they had already pulled the plug. This is at Tanner Medical Center. They had already taken the plug up, and he was sitting up in the bed and looking at me. And I remember walking in that room when I was coming around and saw that corner. This is him getting off the ventilator. And he looked at me and said, are we in Birmingham? I said, no, Dad. We're in Carrollton, Georgia, at Tanner Medical Center. And he said, those people were mean. I said, what people? He said, those people at Carrollton Manor, they were mean. I don't want to go back. And I said, I just shook my head. When I saw my dad, first of all, let me back up and say, when I got there and saw my dad had come back alive, I hit my knees and I grabbed my dad's hand and I said, oh, what a mighty Savior we serve. What a mighty Savior. Young people, old people, middle-aged people, we're here for one purpose, and that's to glorify our God. Love's always going to win and endure to the very end. Teach your children that. Please teach your children that. I know some people don't believe there's a God, but God designed us for victory. He didn't design us to be defeated. We just have to turn our will and our life over to Him. And remember, it's His will be done, not our will be done. This flesh is going to want everything. But let me get back to Larry. because this is about Larry Brown. This is what this video is all about. Not about Rodney, not about anything, but my dad. I'm going to be a voice for my dad. And my dad's going to be a voice for the unknown and the unspeakable that's still out being abused in nursing homes or neglected. Ever how you want to word it. I'm not trying to get myself in trouble or a lawsuit against me. All I'm doing is telling you what my eyes have seen and what my ears have heard. And all I know is physical therapy. You go to Carrollton Manor for physical therapy and you end up on a ventilator. Less than 63 hours. So anyway, that Monday when my dad came alive, I went to the administration office down at Tanner Medical Center, and I walked in there. And when I walked in, I asked, who do I need to speak to about setting up a board meeting? A meeting with a board. I just wanted to let them know, don't be sending people out to Carrollton Manor. That's all I wanted. Please don't send nobody else out to Carrollton Manor. And I wanted to know the process of how places get chosen for my dad to go. And I didn't realize my brother, they had looked and reviewed Tanner. I'm going to educate you on this as well here in Carrollton, people. Tanner Medical Center, they give you 3 or 4 choices. And you would think, and here I go thinking again, which has always got me in nowhere. If you're sending somebody somewhere in this town, you would think that you would want them to be doing a good job as well. Well, come to find out, I talked to Miss Kim in the office, and she hooked me up with Michelle, which is one of the leading nurses for all the nurses there, I guess. And Michelle and I had a talk, and she said their process was they give you 3 or 4 choices, and it's your job to go check them out. Well, if you're letting somebody go out of the hospital and you don't have time to go check them out, you just have to go by faith and trust what they represent or who they're sending them to. So Michelle never got back with me. She said she was going to. I did go back and tell them that I realized that my brother had made the choice to go to Carrollton Manor. But anyway, I never heard back on anything from Michelle. Still haven't. And that following Friday, this was the 27th, my dad came back alive that Monday morning on the 27th. And on that Monday morning, as I get out of the office, at the administration office there, that I went up with the ICU where my dad was and just sat there with him and had people come by and preachers come by. My uncle come by. Some other people came by. And I really appreciate it and appreciate all the prayers from everybody, from my dad. I really do from the bottom of my heart. And the following Friday, now during this process, my dad has had nothing to eat because he failed the swallowing test. He couldn't swallow. And remember, he sat there gurgling for I don't know how long. So all this was wore out. And he was aspirating anytime he swallowed, it would go in his lungs and he'd aspirate. So all I was giving him for about 4 days was just ice chips. Chick-fil-A ice chips, what I like to call it, the little bitty piece ice, the good ice. And I'd spent every day down there. I'd get up and give him ice chips. Sometimes the nurses would come in and give him ice chips. And I finally said, hey, we got to get him stronger. I said, he's got to have something in him. I said, you can't just put ice in him. And they did some more tests on him, and he couldn't pass. And anyway, they finally got a steak in a bag, is what I call it. Steak and potatoes in a bag. They started putting that in him on Friday. And I just sat there and watched my dad deteriorating and getting weaker. But that joker still fought. He got up off the mat, still fighting. And I would do physical therapy with him, try to lift his legs. They showed me some things to do. With no food in him, that joker worked his tail off. And he'd tell me I can't go no. I said, I understand. You ain't got no food in you. Our body's like a car. You got to put gas in it to go. You don't put gas in a car, it runs out. You don't put food in us or nutrition in us, our body gets tired too and runs out. And that Friday, the devil's trying to get me. He ain't going to get me. Trying to shut my voice up, make my voice go away. But I tried to get that 25th, that 27th was that Monday. And that Friday was the 31st. So on the 31st, I was sitting there and I called my dad's preacher and was telling him about how Dad was doing. And, he finally put some food, got a IV bag of meat and potatoes in it for him. And Dad, joking as always, said, yeah, I wished. And anyway, I was talking to Brother Kelly, was talking to the preacher and was telling him about Dad and everything, how he was doing. And Brother Kelly said, right now, I'm at a funeral right now. A lady was out there for physical therapy. Did you say Carrollton Manor? And I said, yes. He said, I'm putting them in, they're burying them today. And she was out there 4 to 5 days for just physical therapy only. So when we hung up, I got straight down to that administration office again and went down there. Of course, this was in the afternoon, 2:30, 3 o'clock. You can pull the cameras. You can go to Tanner Medical Center, pull the cameras. They got tired of seeing me come in that administration office. One lady even rolled her eyes when I came in. I said, you don't have to roll your eyes. I said, I'm not here to cause trouble. And anyway, the two ladies in the office said nobody was in the office. This is at 2:30, 3 o'clock, somewhere around that time, maybe 3:30 at the latest. And I did. I pushed the door open. I think I startled them and scared them because I came in there. I said, please stop sending people to Carrollton Manor. I'm begging you with every ounce of my body. Please stop sending some. Y'all be sending them out there. Quit. And I'm sitting here when I walked out of the office. I'm going back up the stairs and I'm praying, please don't let them people send nobody. I said, that would have been 2 people in a week just for physical therapy. That would have been put 6 foot under. So anyway, we get up to his room. He's in 458. They finally get him in his room up there. When we get up there, now this was on that Thursday or Friday. I want to say it was Thursday. He got out of ICU, maybe Wednesday. It's been a lot going on. I've tried to document. I got paperwork, stuff everywhere with dotted notes, trying to keep up with it. But all I'm trying to make a point in here is my dad, after being there at Tanner Medical Center, and the ladies and the nurses did an outstanding job. They did. They worked their tail off. Wasn't impressed with the respiratory therapy. There was some that were good, but some of them just come put the mask on and left. I ended up having to take the mask off on my dad. So unfortunately, I guess it's the times we're in now. But we got to do better, people. We got to do better. And anyway, that following Wednesday, which was February the 5th. February the 5th, after Dad couldn't continue, they decided to they're going to put a feeding tube in him temporarily. That's what we were told by the doctor and the thing. And here's another thing that got me with Tanner Medical Center, that if your doctor, Dr. Davis is my dad's doctor, and Dr. Davis is not a part of Tanner Medical Center. So my dad's doctor could not go see him in Tanner Medical Center. He's been my dad's doctor for 25 or 30 years. And you mean to tell me he can't come in and see my dad? You going to give me one of your doctors that knows nothing about my dad? I know our times ain't changing this bad. Come on now. I know we're better than this, people. We got to be. I know we are. And like I say, the ambulance people is owned by Tanner Medical Center. Our hospital, and the only hospital we got in Carrollton. Now it's in Bremen. It's in Villa Rica. Tanner Medical Center. So if your doctor's not affiliated with Tanner Medical Center, your doctor's not going to be able to come see you in Tanner Medical Center. And my dad begged for Dr. Kawaja. He's part of Tanner Medical Center. My dad asked those nurses to call him. He's my heart doctor. He never showed. I got it on his phone. I called. It's on the phone record. I called their call number. And I said, look, I know I'm not asking for the doctor on call. I just want y'all to call Dr. Kawaja and let him know that my dad is in the hospital in 458. He just wants to see Dr. Kawaja. It would have lifted my dad's spirits. And he still had spirit. He still was fighting. He still said, we're going to climb this mountain. We're going to climb this mountain. So the 5th, they finally put a tube in my dad on February the 5th. And that was a Wednesday at 2:30 when the surgery was over. We were back upstairs at about 3:15, something like that. No food that evening, nothing. The 6th comes. They come in there. The nurses are telling us, showing, she's sitting there. I'm going to give him his first food, and it was an orange creamsicle, looked like to me a push-up. It was liquid. And I remember the lady, I asked her, I said, now, somebody going to show us how to do all this stuff? And her name was, I want to say Claire. And excuse me if I'm wrong. I got it wrote down somewhere. But I talked to Claire. Claire was our nurse that evening, that day. And she said that they would send somebody in to show us how to do all this stuff. Make sure it don't get infected, keep it clean and everything. Well, the next morning comes on February the 7th. And the doctor comes in. It's a different doctor from the last doctor they had. So here we are switching another doctor. And the doctors that put the feeding tube in, he's the one that told us that temporarily, 2 to 3 months, let's let this get built up in his throat. Well, in the process of getting the 5th of coming out of surgery, I'm going to back up a little bit. I apologize. That my dad, he comes out of surgery, and the first thing the doctor says, they push him in the room, this tube has to stay in permanent. This is a permanent tube. He has to keep this in. Don't take it out. Never take it out. Keep the tube in. I was like, wow, wait a minute. I said, I was thinking that was not what I was told upstairs. This is just going to be temporarily. And I talked to the doctor and, about my faith and, God and, all things are possible for those who believe. Remember that on this journey. All things are possible for those who believe. But first you have to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. You do that, you're written in the Lamb's Book of Life forever. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to fall short to the glory of God. But during that process, I'm sitting there telling this doctor, well, you say forever, about 6, 7 months, 9 months, a year. Can we not check and see? He said, sure. We can still do that. You still check it and see if he starts swallowing good, we can take it out. So that gave my dad some hope. And in the process of that, the 6th, they start feeding her. Start feeding my dad. The 7th, they come in there that morning, and in that process of that, they're sitting there telling us that the doctor's listening to him. Everything's always sounds much better, much better. So I told Dad to make sure that we do everything we're supposed to do. And 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, the doctor, let me back up. The doctor, I asked him, I said, aren't you going to take an x-ray of his chest? Oh, sure, yeah, oh, sure, we got to do that. Just to make sure the pneumonia's gone, still in him, because that's what he'd been fighting as well. And my dad, after about 30 minutes, the nurse comes in there and says, well, he's releasing y'all today. And I was like, what? What do you mean you're releasing us? Nobody showed us how to do the feeding tube. Nobody showed us anything. And the doctor hadn't even taken an x-ray of his chest yet. She says, well, they may come do the x-ray, and you know how long it takes. It may take a while for y'all to get out of here. Less than 45 minutes or an hour, I called my daughter to come up there. And I'm here to tell you, people, they did not unhook my dad. I walk out of the hallway and see 2 ambulance guys with a stretcher. And I thought, well, I wonder if they're here for my dad. My daughter's in the room with Dad. I said, I go out and I look over their shoulder and I see that my dad, they got my dad's folder. And I said, y'all here for Larry Brown? Oh, yeah. Well, they walk in the room. The first thing that ENT says is, we got to do their job. He's not unhooked. He's not ready to go. And I walked out of the room, and I didn't know this till after my dad passed away. But I went down to the hallway and I said, look, he's not unhooked. He's still got IVs in his arms. And I said, y'all ain't even showed us how to feed him. Y'all ain't even showed us anything. And it's been less than 48 hours. And they pretty much forced us out of the hospital. Pretty much. And I thought they picked him up and set him on the thing. But no, my daughter told me, she said, Dad, they didn't pick him up. She said they snatched the things off his chest and pulled the IVs, loosened them. And they said, hang on, you're about to go for a ride for Six Flags. And she told me they pushed him, shoved him across the bed to that car. And he said, oh, y'all hurting me. And I told her right then at that point, I said, you get that out of your system. That's not how you're going to remember Dad. Your papa. I said, you get that out of your system. If we need to talk about it, let's talk about it. But we end up going to the cottages of Rockmart. And up there, I think they're a little shocked that Carrollton released him. Tanner Medical Center, but I think the reason Tanner Medical Center released him because I was making such a big noise to them about trying to find out information and quit sending people to Carrollton Manor. I've also got, I called Mr. Greg Schulenberg, who works at Tanner Medical Center, during all this process of what happened, and asked him to not send people up to Carrollton Manor. And in the process of all this, I called what is called a Osbin. They're the ones that's supposed to represent you in a nursing home. If something goes wrong, you call and report that nursing home. Well, Carrollton Manor doesn't even have a pamphlet with a number on it. They gave me a piece of paper, a white piece of paper like this, and I got it somewhere. I'm trying to find it. It's red writing and red ink. I went out there that Sunday, the 26th of January, to try to get the Osmond's number. But anyway, it's been a mind-boggling experience, to be honest with you. I just can't believe our society has come to this now. And in the process of doing this, the times I went in down there to administration, Miss Kim, and I told her, y'all are dividing us between the have and the have-nots. And there's a Nurse Kelly on February the 4th that was in my dad's room. Me and her discussed the same thing about the have and have-nots. Because if you got good money and you got insurance and everything's hunky-dory, these are your choices. You get all the luxury choices. But if you poor, don't have good insurance or no insurance, this is your pickings. And she said, you're right. Even Miss Kelly, RN Nurse Kelly, told me the same thing. But she did tell me this, and that's what I'm doing this for. I said, both of them said, yes, that's where we are. That's exactly where we're at. I said, that's not. I said, well, I'm for the have-nots, and I'm going to be for the have-nots, just like Jesus was. Look at the people he hung around. The poor, the needy, the helpless, the homeless. We all go through stuff, people. Every single one of us goes through something. But I know they sped my dad's life up. I know for a fact they sped my dad's life up. Now we got to come up with a better solution. And I've tried. I've tried to talk to Tanner Medical Center. I've tried talking to Greg Schulenberg. I've tried talking to Miss Kim. I've tried talking to Miss Michelle. I've talked to some nurses after my dad passed away. Pam Bryant and Terry Stevens, because I wanted to know who signed my dad out of the hospital. Because when we left Tanner Medical Center, I didn't sign him out. My dad didn't sign himself out. They just basically came and picked him up, and got us out of that hospital. I saw it with my own eyes. I witnessed it with my eyes. I've heard everything I've heard. It's not the nurses. They're stretched to the max. The emergency room nurses are stretched to the max. If you got a calling to help people, go be a nurse. Because you're gonna get all the service. That's what Jesus put us here for, y'all, is to serve one another, to help one another. Now y'all are the ones that's dividing us. I'll always be for the needy. I'm a broken man, y'all, after all this. Only God's given me the strength to do what I'm doing now. And I turn my life over again. I've renewed my spirit, my soul, after seeing my dad come back alive. He was a dead man laying on that, I call it the mat. But that joker got up, and the only thing he can remember is Carrollton Manor, and thought we was in Birmingham. That's telling you something, people, if he comes back from the dead. And that's all he can remember. And go to Carrollton Manor's reviews. That's what I tried to tell them at the hospital. I've told Greg Schulenberg. I've tried to tell all these people. But I get nothing. Crickets. I've got text messages. And right here, February the 3rd, I talked to him earlier that weekend. Well, it was a Monday. He said that they probably called me in the meeting to talk with him, the board. Nothing. So Monday night, I texted him about 9:30, 9:08. How did the meeting go? I didn't hear nothing. Tuesday, I texted him on February the 4th. I'm going to show it to you so y'all can see it. I know it's hard to see. I'm trying. Right there, Greg Schulenberg. I said, Greg, I would hope Tanner would do the right thing and not use Carrollton Manor for anything. And then I put, for what is a man profit if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for a soul? Not my words, my Lord Jesus Christ's words. And the response I get back, I text him at 4:57, and the response I get back is, can you see the little hey? There's a little dot there. It says, hey, with a little dot. We're working through it. It's not a small or fast resolution, but I appreciate your information. We're investigating now, and I'll update you, man. Thanks. And I gave him back the little thank you, thanks, with the little hands, praying hands. And on that Saturday, February the 8th, as we're up at the cottages after they kicked us out of the hospital, I started reading more reviews about Carrollton Manor, and that's what I want you to do, people. Go read their reviews. This was 5 years ago. This lady was like a mother to me. I got three. My mom and dad separated when I was a little fella. Me and my brother, I got one brother. And my dad raised us. And I got several moms. I got Gwen Cockeries, Peggy Costley, and Pam Sheffield. Those people were like they were like mothers to me. And Marie's one of Kevin's my best friend up in Cape Cod. One of my best friends. And this was his mom. And I didn't know she'd gone out there. It says horrible negligence, border criminal behavior. No bath in 5 days, no breath treatments in 5 days, even through doctor's orders per 4 days per orders 4 per day. Someone at the facility, of course, no one's taking responsibility, turned oxygen way above where it should be and gave her CO2 poisoning, which landed her back in the hospital. The most incompetent negligence care, go somewhere else. If I'd have read all these reviews, Larry, my dad, would not have gone out there. Now, what's my brother and him out? We're trusting Tanner because this is a community. We are a community, people. We all live in the same place. Y'all are the ones that's trying to segregate us and divide us. The have and have-nots. Well, we're always going to be pulling for the have-nots. And I am very disappointed in this community. It breaks my heart. It breaks my soul. I don't have a dad now. Because of negligence. And also, I went out to the sheriff's office and nothing. I gave a report. They would do nothing. President Donald Trump, please help us here in Carrollton, Georgia. Please, please help us. The sheriff's people are not listening. Nobody's listening. I got the sheriff report. The sheriff, they called me back and told me that I had to get a lawyer. There we go again. Read the reviews, people. Well, I'm not asking nobody to shut the place down. Let's figure out a solution here. Quit killing the innocent people. Neglecting just because we're poor. Don't have good insurance. The same guy that made y'all that's got money made us. Please, Donald Trump, I'm asking for your help. And Elon Musk, please come to this town and go through and review our place, please. God bless us and love us.